Hey, there we go. Draper coming back to you here. We are back in the den, the Wolves' den, to be precise. And like I said, it's always good to come back to these things after W's. W's. That's what it's all about here. Bowl eligibility on the line for two teams last week. Arkansas State traveling all the way out to Conway, South Carolina, taking on the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. Let's take a look at what we had last week. Oh, a picturesque scene. Man, it's such a nice town. The turf, well, it's teal, starting things off real good here. And Arkansas State, like I said, we talked about it last week. They were going to have to control the line of scrimmage on both sides. Marcel Murray busting one off there. Justice Hansen doing what Justin Hansen does. McInnis doing what he does. And they set it up. Boom, bam. And just like that, Arkansas State up 7-0. Omar Bayless on the catch here. Later on, little trickery there. Well, actually just play action. Reed Tyler getting into things. That tight end unit is beat up. But, man, next man up mentality here. But Jeremiah Miller would find Fred Payton, or vice versa, I should say. And we got a closer game than what was to be expected. But from then on, Marcel Murray, that man's a beast. Breaks the tackle, just shook the guy off. They're up 20-6 at this point. And then B.J. Edmonds finally getting in on the interception game. Gets the pick there, and that would lead to this. And look at the time left on that one. Just a little under 3 minutes left in this one. Justice Hansen uncorks one. Kirk Merritt, go up and get it amongst three fellas. Perfect product placement. And then Warren Wand would bulldoze his way in. Those two guys, Wand and Murray, had them a day. We'll talk about them a little more here in just a second. But 27-6 going into the half. And then look at this. Warren Wand just wide open. There was nobody within 10 yards of that guy. And the route was really on. And here's another thing we talked about last week, that eye discipline, because Coastal Carolina likes to throw a lot of funky formations, and they come out and they do a lot of misdirection. And there was not none of that to be had here. Kirk Merritt, also another one of these guys that just had a day. We'll get to his stats in just a minute, but almost getting the score there. And then Marcel Murray gets one of his own. He's safe there in the end zone. 41-13 at that point. And then the defensive line just doing what the defensive line does, generating that pressure. That was another big-time key we talked about last week. Boom, boom. Final there, 44-16 would be it. Throw the stats up there for me, guys, because we got plenty to break down here. Arkansas State racking up 454 yards of offense, 281 through the air, 173 on the ground. Holding Coastal to only 249. Pretty balanced attack for them there. You see 165 and 133. A couple guys, though, we want to mention. We talked about them last week. Outlaw and Marable, 61 yards combined. Marable had 59 of those laws. So Outlaw, excuse me, only 2 yards rushing on the day. Williams, their best receiver. My man Jerry Jacobs shutting things down. He only had one catch for 8 yards all day. Man's out here doing work. The offensive line, one of these guys, no sacks allowed. And that was a team that was generating some pressure on teams, only allowing 3 tackles for a loss altogether. And then the Arkansas State defense shouts out to the fellas there. Back-to-back games now with teams under 300 yards. We got some more stats. Throw it up there for me, guys. That second screen there. Justice Hansen, we mentioned him, had him a day, 18 of 20, 253 yards, 4 touchdowns. Could have been in the running for some players of the week. Don't know, though. Obviously, he didn't win it because it was the fella Calais from Lafayette. But him and Kirk Merritt were on the same page all day. Kirk Merritt, 10 catches. I want to say about 180 yards. 11 catches, excuse me. Don't shortchange the guy. Murray and Wand, I talked about them. 118 yards rushing combined. 4 TDs between the two of them. Both had a rushing touchdown and a receiving touchdown. And then the Arkansas State defense getting back to them. 3 sacks, 10 tackles for a loss in this one. So let's bring up, I think Brad Edwards also had something to say. Do we have that, fellas? Have we got that for me, what Brad Edwards had to say? We do not have that. But anyways, he was very complimentary of the punting game. Brad Edwards, big-time college football analyst, basically was just showering his affection and praise upon the Arkansas State special teams punting unit. Seems like it was a little odd there, but over the past 2 seasons, they have allowed -1 yard returning punts. So it's kind of nice. It's kind of nice when you can kind of change the field and shut things down like that. Also a testament to Cody Grace and his ability to get a little hang time and get some distance on us as well. These aren't just 20-yard punts that go out of bounds either. I mean, he's averaging a little over 40 per punt. So getting things done here. All right, guys, let's take a look at the standings here because bowl eligible. You get to that 6-win mark, you get to go potentially to a bowl game. ULM still leading the way there. You see it 4-2, Arkansas State 3-3, both those teams at 6-4. Lafayette right behind in the mix there. They're also at 3-3, but they are sitting at 5-5. And then you see Texas State and South Alabama kind of bringing up the rear. Not really much of a threat. Their seasons, they're just kind of playing them out at this point. But speaking of bowls, we've got some projections. We always like to see potentially where we're going here. And you see a lot of different ones there. You see the Dollar General Bowl there from ESPN. Also the Arizona Bowl versus Nevada there on ESPN. Another Arizona Bowl appearance there. Fresno State, CBS. New Orleans and Middle Tennessee State there from Bleacher Report. I'm not sure they really understand how these things work in the Sun Belt, but there you go. And then the Cure Bowl versus Tulane from our friends down there at the Orlando Sentinel. Also, a couple more here from some of the big dogs. You see more Arizona Bowl and Fresno State there from Yahoo. SB Nation has Memphis. Ooh, now that, sir, would be a game right there. New Orleans Bowl versus North Texas from USA Today. Again, I don't really think they see how this works. When you get a Louisiana team eligible, chances are that's where they're going. And then you see the Arizona Bowl there from CFN there against San Diego State. So really no shortage of potential landing spots right now. You see a lot of Arizona. You see a lot of Cure. We'll just have to kind of wait and see how things play out in the next couple of weeks here. All right, let's bring in one of our good friends here, Chase Gage from the Red Wolf Report, also ArkansasVarsity.com. Brother, how you doing? Thanks for coming in.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely here. Let's just go to last week here and kind of the culmination of this little streak that Arkansas State's been on since really that App State game and even that Lafayette game. They've looked good. The offense is now doing what we've all expected the offense to do. I guess in your opinion, what has changed from that sort of that down point against Georgia Southern and App State until now?
Well, you could tell that in those games against Georgia Southern and App State, we weren't getting any the passing game wasn't really flowing. We weren't getting any deep threats. The receivers were struggling, it seemed, to get any separation from corners or other DBs. And then all of a sudden against Lafayette, it just clicked, just exploded. I guess it was the week before that against Georgia State, but and it's carried over ever since then. And you see that reflected with McInnis a couple weeks ago with, I think it was 8 receptions, 178 yards or whatever. And then the next week you have Kirk Merritt with 11 catches, 180 yards. So you're starting to see that there are multiple receivers that are now deep threats. And any play, Hansen could find them for a big touchdown. We were really lacking that to start the season. We didn't have many of the big play touchdowns that we were kind of looking forward to, that we've been spoiled with in the past. But that's really been flowing the last few weeks, and I think that's one of the biggest contributors to the higher points totals.
And now I know this is one of these things that people look at as, oh, we're making excuses for this team. But this team has dealt with a lot of injuries. And you mentioned there, so a lot at that wide receiver position. I mean, Dahu Green, Kendrick Edwards has been out for about the past month. Bynum goes down. So, and really, I've seen Kirk Merritt's role evolve in the past couple of weeks, where a lot of, beforehand, he was a lot of dink and dunk. And now, as you saw even in those highlights there against CCU, he's becoming that deep threat and even going up and getting the ball. And then finally you're getting Justin McInnis involved in things, and you're actually seeing him use his height to his advantage.
For sure. Going back to the depth, coming into the season, Dahu Green looked like he was going to potentially become the go-to guy.
Oh, yeah.
And then, you lose him in the first quarter of the first game, and that hurts. But, it's a next man up mentality. Excuse me. Next man up mentality. But then when the next man up gets hurt, like you said, Kendrick Edwards, when you're missing a guy like that that's in the starting lineup for half of your season, then he's out for half. He's hobbled. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play?
Right.
And it's taken a while for the other guys to really get their chemistry and get their roles down. But now that they're finally gelling, it's working wonderfully.
And what have you noticed even about Justice Hansen's play? I almost called him Justin. Jeez, these ESPN guys are starting to get to me here. What have you noticed in the way he's approaching the game, the way he seems to be, I guess, evolving as the season goes along? Because it seemed earlier in the season he just didn't seem comfortable, and some of that might just be from improved O-line play.
He does seem a lot more confident the last few weeks, and I think that's part of the chemistry thing with the wide receivers, kind of putting more trust in them to put the ball up around them. Because you saw earlier in the year, it was a lot of short passes, a lot of dump routes to running backs, stuff like that. But then he hasn't been afraid to let it, just let it fly and try to get to, try to let his receivers make plays for him instead of trying to force the play himself. And we saw that with McGinnis multiple times this year. Just throw it close to him. He'll go up and get it and then make a play. So I think that's been the difference. And
obviously, too, the evolution of not only just his defense, but Jerry Jacobs in particular. I put a tweet out the other day about him. He's become a legitimate shutdown cornerback. In fact, the past few weeks, best receivers in the Sun Belt. You're talking about Marvin Williams this past week, 1 catch, 8 yards. Jamario Way, 1 catch, 5 yards. Against Lafayette, Bradley, 2 catches, 16 yards. I mean, these are top 10 type dudes, and even Penny Hart had 4 catches for only 58 yards. But granted, he didn't really start getting involved until the third quarter. And then, funny thing here, Jerry actually reached out to me and wanted me to know that also Hennigan from App State only had 1 catch for 7 yards. So I guess, Chase, what do you think about this defense as a whole? And then to finally now have a guy in that secondary, which I think was the biggest question mark coming into this season, sort of being that guy in that defensive backfield.
Stepped it up the last few weeks, and we knew coming into the year that the defensive line was going to be scary good and that there were some animals down there, but we didn't really know who was going to step up in the secondary. And then Jacobs has really made that stride these last few weeks, and like you said, he's shutting down everybody's #1 receiver, and it's giving our defense the chance to compete in games to where they don't have to just rely on stopping the run. We aren't scared to have them throw at us. Jacobs is going to have a huge test this week. It depends on where they line up Marcus Green for ULM, but Coach Cawthon in Monday's press conference called him the best player in the Sun Belt, period. So yeah, he lines up in the slot a lot. They try to get him in the backfield to run the ball some. He's a kick returner. So it might not be Jacob's primary assignment, but just in general, the secondary could have another animal on their hands. So it'll be interesting to see how they step up against the challenge there.
Absolutely here. And I guess just from your covering of the team, I mean, what's the overall mood like now? Because I think I saw it was you or someone else had put something out along the lines of it's been a bad month. Bad couple of weeks for the Fire Blake Anderson crew. I guess just for what you've been around this team, I mean, how's the mood changed from that dark time of the Georgia Southern and App losses until now, even with the Lafayette loss?
That wasn't me with that tweet, but I did see all that.
Okay.
No, early in the year, especially like the non-conference slate, the team had a lot of confidence. But then you could tell that it was kind of shattered after the back-to-back conference losses. I don't want to say shattered, that's not a good word, but the morale was kind of low. But really, ever since then, they've responded well. And it was weird, after the Lafayette game, it seemed as if most people would think that would be like the end point, that they'd just give up from there.
Sure.
But really, they were more mad at themselves and like ready to overcome that than anything. I think that was the real turning point, because they had thought they turned the corner and then realized like, oh, we got to step it up. And then since then, it's been pure confidence. They understand the situation that you have to win every game, and they come prepared every day. Like, hey, we're gonna win every game. We're better than the opponents. We're the best team out here. We might have struggled early, but here we are. We've arrived. So give us your best shot. That's kind of been the feeling. And it's, you go out to practice and it's like, it doesn't feel like the public's perception has nothing. There's no correlation between, oh yeah, they're, all the worries and stuff. That's all external. They're very confident in their product right now.
And they've been rolling here. In fact, our friend A-State Fan Rules had mentioned the other day that this offense is finally cooking. And ever since that Appalachian State loss, they've hung 44 a game. So this is finally that team who's. I do want to get your hot take on the O-line here, because it seemed like they couldn't do much of anything early in the season, and now all of a sudden nobody's touching Justice Hansen. In fact, this past week, I mean, you had some of the leaders in sacks and tackles for loss. They never got to Hansen, only 3 for a loss throughout the entire game, and this is a team that likes to run the ball now a bit more than normal. I mean, what have they done that you've noticed on that offensive line that seemed to have clicked now?
I can't really point my finger at a certain like one thing. They've just really come together as a unit. It just early in the year, against App State, Georgia Southern, we were struggling to get anything going. Justice, he's taking one step back and people are flooding him, so you're having to get a bunch of those quick little dump routes and such. But excuse me, I don't know if it's just communication or just evolving in their roles over the season, getting some maturity or what have you. But they've really stepped it up, and like you said, we came into last week one of the best defensive teams in the conference, and then they don't even get close to there you go. I'm saying Justin now. Got all this congestion.
Exactly.
Congestion, But for Justice, nobody's getting close to him anymore, and that's allowing him to get these deep balls and stuff. And so I think just the whole offense. It starts with the O-line, but the quarterback's playing well, the wide receivers are playing well, and the running backs are playing well. It's all just clicking all together. I think it's just team chemistry coming together later in the year than we had hoped. But when you got a young team with a lot of injuries, that tends to happen.
Yeah, we're all having a lot more fun now, but the fun does not stop here. Next week, though, big time matchup, and in fact, there's a lot of implications in this Louisiana-Monroe game. It's going to be an afternoon game, 2 o'clock. It's going to be the only one going on in the state of big note at that time here. Let's get into Louisiana-Monroe here. A couple keys to the game there. Throw that up for me there, guys. I think one of the big ones is it's kind of football 101 type stuff, but you got to win the trenches. This is a team that likes to run the ball, despite the fact that you got Caleb Evans back there. In fact, he's one of their bigger runners. In fact, he's I kind of got it here. Oh, yeah. He is their leading rusher. 574 yards in the area. He's about 57 a game. That puts him 11th in the Sun Belt here for rushing. In fact, Derek Gore also right behind him, 565 yards, puts him 12th in there. What do you make of, I guess, what this Louisiana-Monroe team has done as the year's gone on, especially on the ground, because I think they've been known for kind of being a little more high-flying team right there. In fact, that should say keys to the game for Louisiana-Monroe, not Coastal Carolina.
Well, early in the year, they were struggling. They didn't look like they were going to be what all they had been hyped up to be, because in the preseason, most people were pretty much assumed that it was going to be Arkansas State and Louisiana-Monroe were going to be the two teams in the West that, those are the teams to beat because of Caleb Evans and, everything that he can do for you on the field. But early they struggled, kind of like Arkansas State has, but they've really found their stride. I want to say they're on a 4-game win streak right now. Mm-hmm. One of those was Georgia Southern. And they destroyed
Pounded
Georgia
them,
Southern. Yeah, it wasn't ever close. And I think that they have a lot of the same things going as our team has, to where they struggled early, but they started to find their stride when it matters the most, and they realized, hey, the season's on the line, which they control their own destiny, whereas we don't. But all that can change this Saturday. But they've really they've just come together as a team. And Coach Anderson noted that too, that they were going through a lot of the same struggles as us, and just with time, you kind of see the guys that you expected to play well are playing better than you might have expected early, even though they didn't show it early. So I think ULM is very similar to us in that respect.
They have been a bit of an enigma this year. Georgia State blows them out, but they blow out Georgia Southern. Hung pretty well with Troy, struggled against Texas State. I guess, and this has kind of been over the course of the whole year. It's not like all these games were kind of bunched together. They've been kind of a bit of a roller coaster. I guess just what have you noticed out of them from what you've been able to take in from them? That you mentioned some of the injuries and just some of the similarities there, but I guess what's your take on this team? Are they just kind of a week-to-week bunch, or is there something consistent there and it's just a matter of maybe playing the matchups a little bit here and there?
I think it's a little bit of a combination there to where the Sun Belt is probably the toughest or the deepest that it's ever been.
Yeah.
And so each week you've got an absolute battle with whoever, Texas State, Coastal Carolina, App State, it doesn't matter. Every team is going to give you their best every week. And I think their struggles, you struggle against Texas State, but you find a way to win. You might struggle with certain matchups, but in the end, as long as you get the W, that's all that really matters. And especially as good as this league is this year. That's one of the most absurd things is a loss to Georgia State, but a win over Georgia Southern. Like, I doubt that there's any other team that has done that, but so I don't think that they're, just because they have a couple bad games or whatever, I do think that they're a very good team. And right now, I mean, I'd put them as a team to beat obviously for us, but in general, I would say that they're the team to beat in the Sun Belt West. It's their division for the taking right now because they were able to take care of business even in those games that they didn't play well.
Absolutely here. And also another one of these keys of the game, containing Evans. He is kind of the straw that stirs their drink. We mentioned all the rushing stats for him. He's also the #2 quarterback in terms of airing it out in the Sun Belt. Some stats for him, Mary. I mean, he's right there with Justice in terms of yardage, 2,450 yards. He's 199 and 322, puts him a little over 61%. The one thing I think you could knock on him, though, is his touchdown interception ratio, 13-8, whereas Justice is about 22-6. So what is it about this guy that makes him go, in your opinion, and what does Arkansas State's defense have to do to contain that guy? Because traditionally they've had problems with running quarterbacks.
Well, he's going to be one of the most unique matchups that they've faced all year. Coach Cawthon touched on that in Monday's press conference a little bit. He said he's different than the Toledo quarterback, or Tulsa, not Toledo, sorry. Whatever. He's different than the UNLV quarterback, different than the Georgia Southern quarterback. So they're going to run different schemes, and he's going to be hard to contain because you have to play your lane on defense, and you can't let him get out of that because he's either going to burn you deep, or he's going to run it on you. And he's a great dual threat quarterback. I remember coming into the year, people were saying, oh, it's either Justice Hansen or Caleb Evans for the best quarterback. Yeah. And a bunch of people didn't believe that because they're like, oh, well, it's got to be Hansen, Offensive Player of the Year last year, coming back as a senior. But Evans has really proved himself. And going back to the total yardage, I was running the numbers, and if you count Hansen's catch and whichever game that was, I believe
that was last week.
Yeah. If you factor that in, I want to say Hansen has like 50 more total yards or something on the season.
Wow.
It was stupid close. I wrote about it in my last little write-up. But yeah, the biggest thing for Evans, like you said, is kind of the touchdown to interception ratio. That's what's keeping him from being like an elite passer.
Right.
If you go back to this game last year, both quarterbacks threw for 4 touchdowns. Hansen had 1 interception and Evans had 3, and the Red Wolves win by 2 touchdowns and a field goal. So you got to wonder if that's really it was the difference maker last year, the turnovers in that shootout. So you got to wonder if that's going to be an issue, especially coming on the road for ULM. So if there's a great crowd and get a bunch of noise going on in there, you might be able to rat them a little bit, scare them with Bingham up the middle.
Yeah.
Just make sure that he's contained and that he feels the pressure coming. Don't let him run, but make sure he knows that if he tries, that there's going to be somebody waiting on him. I think that's the best way to get to a younger quarterback in the league.
Absolutely. Kind of goes back to that whole controlling the trenches thing. In fact, if you kind of look at Arkansas State's defensive front in here, 4 of these guys are in the top 10 in the conference in terms of tackles for loss. Bingham, William Bradley King, Kevin Thurman, and Dejon Emery is even up there. It's not really a guy you hear of a whole lot in terms of being one of those guys, but there's 3 guys too in terms of sacks in that top 10: Bingham, Bradley King, and also Forrest Merrill. So they're generating some pressure, and I think that's something you're going to have to do in order to try to contain him. Is you're going to have to do with that front 4. That way you can drop some guys back. Jerry Jacobs, one of these guys, is going to be tasked with trying to keep Marcus Green in check. Only 39 catches on the year, but the man's got yards, 710 of them, and 7 touchdowns. He's second in terms of yards per game in the belt with about 71, but also R.J. Turner, another one of these guys that can step up and do it. He hasn't gotten a lot of touchdowns on him, but he's got 469 yards. I mean, even this wide receiving core for the Warhawks is going to be something to be dealt with.
Oh, definitely so, and that's what I said earlier with when Coach Coughlin called Marcus Green the best player in the Sun Belt. You know, that's got to worry you a little bit as an A-State fan, just because, you know, if your defensive coach is giving somebody that high praise, that's definitely somebody you got to be worried about because they try to get him involved in all aspects of the game there. And yeah, they've got a very powerful offense. They've got weapons everywhere. But yeah, with Marcus Green, he's got what was it, 35, 39 receptions?
39 receptions, yeah, on the year.
39. Yeah, and then you look at guys like Kirk Merritt, and he's got almost double the receptions for about the same amount of yards.
Right.
And he's our leading receiver. So, you know, you look at those stats, and they're kind of eye-popping, you know, and he's able to find the end zone. Going back to what you said about our defensive line, Coach Anderson talked about them the other day, and he said not all the time the stats don't show how much of an impact those guys make. He said,
oh, yeah.
Especially with Bingham, he said if chaos was a stat, that he would lead the nation because he's not getting – a lot of the other guys are getting sacks because Bingham is making them – you know, they're running away from him and into other guys. So the way that those guys play, they don't play for their own stats. They get just as excited when one of the other guys makes a play as they do when they make a play. You know, so they've been a group effort all year of, hey, you know, play your assignment, and if you're not making the play, somebody else is. So I think that's going to be a fun matchup this weekend. And yeah, back to what we were saying earlier, the secondary, if they're able to come out and have a statement game, kind of like they have in the past against the number one receivers and stuff, if the secondary can have a big game, then it could be a big win for the Red Wolves. But you know, if they struggle, then it could be another shootout. Probably not 67-50 again, but you never really know when these two take the field. So,
well, that's one of the next keys here. Keep on scoring. If this team is going to have to put up some points because, I mean, Monroe is going to get their fair share of points. In fact, they're scoring at about a clip of 27 per game. Kind of puts them average in terms of everything in the nation, in the belt play. They've done a lot better here. But again, this is a team. I mean, they're going to put up yards. They've got a pretty potent offense in general. Like I alluded to the rushing numbers earlier, 54th in the country. Passing offense is 45th in the country. Now, their defense is a little kind of lacking, but I think that's just the nature of the Sun Belt here. And I think you've mentioned some of the injuries and stuff that they were dealing with here earlier. But for Arkansas State, I mean, they're scoring at just under 32 per game clip. The rushing offense is just as good as Monroe's now that they've really kind of got things going. That the passing offense has now gotten into the top 25, 23rd now in the country at 286 per game. I mean, really, what does this offense need to do this week in order to just put some points on the board?
It might not be like a super pretty answer or whatever, but I think, honestly, they need to keep doing what they've been doing. Just play your game. That's what we've been doing so well over the last few weeks is just, hey, we're going to play our style of football, you know, and they're just going to have to deal with it. And I see that trend continuing this week. I think we're going to try to get Marcel Murray involved in the running game, you know, with Wand kind of playing the backup role as he has. Kind of, you know, use Wand more in the passing game too with the little screens and such. And I think we want to open it up, go deep to McInnes, you know, throw a ball up to Merritt or Bayless or, you know, whoever else. If Kendrick Edwards is available this week, you know, at some point, even coming off an injury, you might have to throw him in there and say, hey, yeah, I know you've been hurt, but we got to have you. You know, that's just the nature of it lately. So offensively, I mean, they've been over the last 4 games averaging 44 and hit that 44 mark exactly a week ago.
Yeah.
So I think the offense, they've just been clicking, and it's just going to be more of, hey, you play your game, you know. And if they give you certain looks, you know, check out into other stuff, but, you know, just play your own confident style. And I think that's what we're going to be doing going forward against, you know, Monroe and Texas State. It's just, hey, they're going to have to deal with us. It's not us dealing with them kind of thing.
Absolutely. And, in fact, it should be a good day for Arkansas State's offense to feast. ULM allowing about 32 a game puts them kind of towards the bottom of the country. Their rush defense has not been stellar allowing 179 a game, and then their pass defense allowing 250, and that puts them at 96th in the country. I think another thing, too, is the explosive plays. It's something that we really concentrated on earlier in the season, something that Arkansas State couldn't get and was allowing a lot of. But this is a team in Monroe. Throw some numbers out for you because these people know I love numbers. In terms of 10-plus yard type plays, ULM has 149 of those on the year. That puts them 44th in the country. They have 63 10-plus yard runs. That puts them 37th. 86 passes in terms of 10 or more yards. That puts them at 73rd. In terms of allowing them, I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you guys. They're just if you got to rewind it, feel free. They've allowed 161 plays. That puts them 109th in the country. So, again, kind of goes back to what I was saying, that this offense could feast. They've allowed 61 runs of 10 or more yards, 96th in the country, and they've allowed 100 right on the nose passes of 10 or more yards. I guess defensively from Monroe, because I know their big show is that offense and Caleb Evans. But what have you seen out of that defense? And I mean, even though they've put up some low-point games, but it was against the likes of Texas State. But surprisingly, Georgia Southern wasn't able to do much against them. Now, granted, they are somewhat one-dimensional, but it's just a matter of how they go about doing it. And they also ate up Coastal Carolina as well. But what have you seen from this defense that just allows those big play abilities to come about? And even the numbers, it doesn't seem like they're as bad as what the numbers suggest.
Yeah, it's kind of a hard question to answer because their defense, it can look very solid at times. When everybody's on the same page and they're all playing their assignments, they look like they could stop anybody. Like against Georgia Southern, they knew what to expect in the run game, and they came prepared and they shut it down. And when Georgia Southern can't throw a pass, then it didn't matter. They shut them down completely in the run game, and they couldn't do anything. Excuse me. But like you said, they're not as bad. They don't appear as bad as they might seem on paper. They've got a lot of playmakers on defense. They've got a lot of guys that can step up and make plays. I think it's just a matter of everybody on the defense being on the same page and playing your assignments. And that's kind of some struggles that we saw earlier in the year, especially against Lafayette a couple weeks ago. That was to where our offense couldn't be stopped. We were driving down the field every time we got the ball and scoring at will, but then one guy misses an assignment and another guy misses a tackle, and boom, you got an 80-yard touchdown. And I think that's a lot of what ULM's struggles have been, is just the assignments. One guy gets out of assignment and it leads to a big chunk play. And if they're able to adjust in the ways that we have to kind of get that communication improved, and once when you get your chemistry together, when they're all flowing together and playing all the correct assignments, then they're going to be a dangerous team defensively. But if we can exploit them even a little bit, we could get rolling early, and hopefully it could continue through the night. Absolutely.
And in terms of Arkansas State gaining the chunk plays here, I'll just kind of go through those numbers quickly. 163 10 or more yards. These are all 10 or more yards, so I'll stop saying it like that. But they have 163 on the year. That puts them at 25th in the country. In fact, they have even 20 or more yards. They're 59. That puts them 15th in the country. But 61 runs of 10 or more. That puts them 42nd. But they also have 102 passes of 10 or more. That puts them 31st. So I think this team has a chance to put up a lot of yards, put up a lot of points. And I know we talked a lot earlier in the year about the red zone struggles. Those are no more. It seems to be almost automatic now, the way this team is motoring with the evolution of Marcel Murray, Warren Wong even kind of finding his mojo again. Justice Hansen really hasn't had to bang between the tackles in that red zone as the season has gone on.
Oh, for sure. I think, this is a team that's playing the way that they wanted to coming in and just couldn't early, and now they're hitting on all cylinders. And Coach Anderson said that Monday. He said that the plan is to score a lot of points because he knows they're going to need them. So one thing, the chunk plays are awesome, but one thing that I've seen a huge improvement throughout the year is like early against SEMO, it seemed like, in the second half, it was like we ran 4 plays and had 3 touchdowns. It's a bunch of bang, bang plays.
Yeah.
But then late in the season, we've been putting together 80-yard drives over 8 plays. And that's what I love to see more than anything is, hey, we're going to run, first down, second down, get a first down. You know, gain of 8, gain of 7 here, gain of 6. You know, you staying ahead of the chains and just marching. You know, oh, we don't have to score on a broken assignment. We're going to march down the field and punch it in. And so that's been a huge improvement too, I think, over the last few weeks. That one I feel really started in Lafayette because I feel like against Georgia State it was a bunch of big plays and stuff.
Yeah.
But then when we went to Lafayette, it was okay. After had a couple bad start. I don't exactly remember how that one started, but I feel like we stalled on the first couple drives and then just started marching. Ever since then, we've been 8 plays, 75 yards, and a touchdown.
Yeah.
Last week when Hanson played quarterback, we scored on every drive except for the missed field goal to end the half, and almost all of them were 6, 7 plays. One was 3 plays because of the interception. But when Hanson was at quarterback, it was I think 7 drives, 6 touchdowns, and 400-something yards. So I think that's going to be more the goal than the chunk plays, and we'll take the chunk plays whenever we can get them. But I think they're going to be content to just get a 7-play, 65-yard drive for a touchdown. That's going to be the name of the game.
Yeah, the best defense is a consistent offense for sure. They even had a 95-yard one against Coastal Carolina this past week. And I guess finally here, big time key, and I mentioned it earlier with Brad Edwards kind of shouting out the punting unit. This punting unit has just been downright nasty this season. They've only allowed 8 returns. They have negative 15 yards in that. So teams are averaging -2 yards per punt return against this team. That puts them second in the country, only behind Bama, which no surprise there. So what has it been about this punt unit here? I mean, I know Cody Grace is the guy that stirs that drink because he is a boomer. Say so what you will, maybe a little homer in me, but this guy is an NFL caliber punter, if there is such a thing to be said about a punter.
Oh, I believe I tweet out pretty much every time he takes the field. It's kind of an ongoing joke, but it's not really a joke. I always call him Heisman frontrunner Cody Grace because if I had a ballot, I'd vote for him over anybody. He's my Heisman winner.
We got to be looking at the Gay Award or something at least.
Exactly, something. He needs some recognition. And his average should be a lot higher, but he's had 2 or 3 just botched kicks that go 5, 6 yards, or his average would probably be closer to 50.
Yeah.
The way he puts hang time on the ball, and our gunners are able to get down there and get in the face of the returner before the ball gets to him. So you're either calling a fair catch, you're dropping the ball. We saw that against Coastal. Grace only had to punt twice, and that was in garbage time. The game was already decided. And both times that he punted, Coastal muffed the ball. They were able to land on it, but the gunners got down there and got in the guy's face, and he couldn't make the catch cleanly. So, it's a group effort there. It's the line blocking to give Grace time to boot it. He's not having to kick it super quick.
Right.
He's got the protection. You got the gunners going down and making pressure, and everybody's playing their lane. And we've been pretty confident all year that when Grace comes on, we know we're going to pin them deep. We don't have to worry too much about a big return. We're pretty confident wherever he puts it, that's about where they're going to get it. So
that's it.
That's a huge weapon, a huge advantage to have, because a lot of teams, that's something you have to worry about is the punting game. Like, should we go for it on 4th and 5? We don't have to worry about that. We know that if we need to punt it, we got the guy to do it, and we got the unit around him to make sure that nothing big happens for the other team. So.
And this is a team you're going to have that come to call this week. 15.5 yards per return for Louisiana Monroe. And now, granted, it's only on 6 returns. They had 1 for a touchdown, so skews the numbers a little bit, but it puts them 11th in the country. But definitely Cody Grace. And he's been dealing with a groin injury for a couple weeks there, too. So big-time weapon for Arkansas State to have. Let's switch gears here quickly, get to some things going off the gridiron. Volleyball tournament starts this week. I believe the team is set to go against South Alabama this week. What do you make of the volleyball team, their chances going into this thing, being the 6th seed?
Even though they're the 6th seed and they've kind of, I don't want to call them underwhelming because that's kind of a bad word to say, but they came in with high expectations and they didn't really meet their expectations. But I went and watched them against Texas State the other day. You know, the best team in the conference.
Yeah, by a lot. Yeah.
They were on a 17-game win streak, and they come to Jonesboro, and Carlisa May, she lit up the whole court, man. She was on fire, couldn't be stopped. And, you know, we gave our best game to the best team, and we beat them. And I interviewed her after that, and she said, you know, hey, if we can beat them, we can beat everybody. And I believe that. You know, volleyball is kind of an odd sport as far as being streaky, and, you know,
it's definitely a game of runs.
Exactly, and it's such a short, like in football, you've got so much time to come back. If you have a bad drive, okay, that's fine. You know, we'll make adjustments. In volleyball, you don't have that. You know, if you lose a set, then, oh, wow, you're behind. You know, you could be out almost, you know, in no time. So it just depends on, you know, if they're having a good game, and, you know, but they have the ability to win the Sun Belt tournament. And they're not going to be the favorites,
No.
you know, not even close. But, you know, they definitely, they have the players, they have the playmakers, they have the ability to win it, just because of the nature of the sport and because of the way they play. And, you know, I saw them beat Texas State, so why can't they beat anybody else?
I don't see why not.
That's my way of seeing it.
That's it. Carlisa May, you mentioned her, also the Sun Belt Offensive Player of the Year announced this week as well. Switch gears to hoops. We'll kind of encompass both of these teams as we're kind of getting into the season. We'll start really talking about them in the next couple of weeks. Men hoop, I kind of still don't really know what to make of them, just because, you know, they got blown out by Abilene Christian, and then they blew out Missouri Baptist. But these women, though, they look a lot better than what they have in the past couple of years. Came up just short against Oklahoma State, 62-60 in that, and then beat Memphis, a team that, at least on the women's side, traditionally pretty solid. Got a 77-66 win to them, a comeback win in that one, in what was Memphis's first trip to Jonesboro, I believe, in 30-odd years. So what do you make of both of the basketball teams here in the early go?
I'm in the same boat as you on the men's team. I haven't really seen enough to have a real opinion on where they stand yet. They play great defense. They put a lot of pressure on everybody. You can tell the whole bench, when they're on defense, is standing up, clapping, giving pressure. They get a lot of confidence, a lot of momentum off of their defensive plays.
Right.
But they kind of have yet to find an offensive identity. And I think that's just because it's early in the season.
Sure.
You know, it's Bellato's second year. He's still trying to install his system. So I think we'll learn more about them over time. But the women's team, man, they're electric. They were so much fun to watch. That Memphis game, I haven't been that excited about a basketball game in a long time. It kept feeling like Memphis was just one play away from just running away with it. They'd get the lead up to 8 points, and then A-State would make something happen. And then there at the end, you really saw just how deep this Red Wolves team is. I don't know how many players played significant minutes. I'd have to get the numbers, but it seemed like there was at least a 10-player rotation, and you don't see any real drop-off from the players. And so at the end of the game, Memphis was getting in foul trouble. They were getting fatigued, and we were fresh, and we were ready to go. And Peyton Martin had like 5 and 1 layups in a row right there at the end. She just took over the fourth quarter, and she hadn't even been playing a prominent role to start the game. When you've got 2 guards that you can sub out for 2 other guards and they play the same level, and then you've got 2 bigs that are really good, and you've got 2 wings that are solid, and then you've got 2 shooters that can get hot. They've got a bunch of great players that play their role almost perfectly, and when they can get their rotations going, keep fresh legs, the play doesn't drop. A lot of times in men's basketball, you'll see you got 6 great players, but then when you put a backup in, the other team can go on a run. You're not going to see that with this women's team. They're so deep and so talented. They're going to be so much fun to watch this year. They play a great brand of basketball. And that's my shout out, my ad for them, I guess, is come watch them, man, because they're awesome.
Yeah, it should be fun to watch that team evolve as the year goes on, and nowhere else do you get this kind of women's basketball analysis. Also, do want to get some bowling in here, because nowhere else do you get any of that. analysis
Exactly.
either. Bowling coming off second place last week in the Warhawk Classic. They did knock off Sam Houston and Nebraska, some nefarious foes that are usually one of the better teams in the country. They did get the second place. Took it all the way to a Game 7 in that one, just kind of lost it there in the end. Bowling, again, one of those kind of sports where it's a little unpredictable at times, but this team consistently is up there. They're always in the NCAA picture. I guess, what have you made of just this program as a whole and even into this season with all the expectations that they always have on them now?
Yeah, bowling is a weird sport to like give real analysis of because it's not a sport like football or basketball, but traditionally, it's always been one of the best bowling programs in the nation. I mean, consistently, if you ever see college bowling on TV, which is very rare, but it happens. I've been flipping through the channels a couple of years ago, and it was NCAA tournament, and you just see a big Red Wolf banner, and it's like, what? Oh, that's awesome. It's good brand recognition to have a program that even if they don't get very much exposure, they're very dominant. And getting second place. I was looking at the schedule earlier. I don't think they have another tournament until like January, so they've got a lot of time to get it together. But this is a program that expects greatness, and they've been a great program over the last handful of years at least. Since I've been going to school here, they've been one of the best teams in the nation. So I fully expect that to continue. It's a great program.
Absolutely. Here. So, like I said, we'll kind of get things think. Bowling, actual bowling. This football team going to be bowling as well. If you had to pick a bowl, where would you want to go?
Personally, just from a selfish standpoint,
that's what we're here for.
I would want to go to the New Orleans Bowl because I want to go to the I've never been to the Superdome. I want to go to the Superdome press box. I want to go to that. So that's just me. I've heard it's really cold up there, but
it's pretty high up there. I mean, you need oxygen tanks, and it's one of those. It's very strange. It's an open air indoor setup. When you get up there, it blows your mind. So we'll see. But like I was saying earlier, Louisiana teams get eligible. Chances are. But if you had another one, where would you want to go?
That's tough. I've heard, even though a bunch of fans might be sick of Mobile, I've heard that Mobile is an awesome place.
It's been a while for them.
I've heard that the whole week, that everybody goes up there, it's just a lot of fun. They said it's super easy. The hotel is right there, and you can walk everywhere, and everybody's always having a good time. I've never been to that stadium either. Not heard great things about.
You're not missing much in the stadium.
But I think that would be a fun experience. The A-State fans travel really well there because it's one of the closer games. You're not talking. I think Orlando would be awesome for the weather.
Oh, it was great last year or the last time they went.
But I don't know that I'd even be able to swing that one because that's a pretty hefty trip, So the closer the better for me, just for the fan experience and the travel and such. But yeah, from the selfish standpoint, I'd definitely love to go to the Superdome. So Mobile, New Orleans, I know that New Orleans is a slim chance, especially if Lafayette gets bowl eligible too. Because then, one of them is definitely going to go. So I guess Mobile would be cool because even at being a student, I never got the chance to go down there to the bowl games. So I'm going to be excited anyway because it's going to be my first A-State bowl game.
That is the key.
And to go to. So I'm just excited in general.
That's the key. Going bowling is a good thing here. And shouts out Wenzel's there in Mobile. Tear the place up. It's fantastic. Chase, man, we appreciate you coming on, my brother. Where can the people find you? What are you doing?
You can follow me on Twitter at ChaseGage1. I'm pretty witty and awesome. That's where I got all my momentum started with sports writing and such. Check out RedWolfReport.com. It's a Rivals affiliate. I'm a writer for there with my boss, Luke Matheson. He's an awesome guy. Yeah, check him out too. Yeah. And I also write for him for ArkansasVarsity.com, and that's a fairly new gig. I haven't even written for that yet. My first big assignment is going to be the NEA tournament this year, so be on the lookout for that. If you see me around campus, see me at First National Bank Arena, Centennial Bank. Just say hey, whatever. I'm just around Jonesboro all the time. Follow
there you
me on
go.
Twitter.
Absolutely, absolutely. Here now you got a name, a face with the name, my man. Hey, my man, we'll definitely bring you back in come basketball season, all that good stuff. Appreciate you coming on, brother.
All right. I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
You betcha. Hey, like you said, man, you're going bowling. Hopefully, got to wait on the invites and all the official stuff here, but we'll definitely blow that out when the time comes here. Thank you for joining us here in the Wolves Den. We will come back to you next week, hopefully with another W in this one. We will see you guys next week.